And we are live. Hi, Jessica. Thank you so much for joining us. Um, I wanna just quickly introduce our little podcast. This is our episode 5 of Data Driven Podcast that I run with Rose, and Rose is traveling today, so she couldn't be here. A little bit about me: I consult with high growth startups and help them drive 10x product growth. And I've driven over $100 million in impact by applying product led growth principles. And if you want to schedule time with me, please go ahead and do so on Calendly. It's on my LinkedIn profile, and I can help you build a growth engine at your company. And today we're talking to um, Jessica Chen Riolfi. Um, she's the co-founder of and CEO of Uprise, a fintech company that's empowering companies to embed AI-powered financial advisory into their offerings. Prior to Uprise, Jessica spent her career at the intersection of technology and finance, helping develop some of the world's well known financial products, such as she's worked at Robinhood, Wise, Earnin. She holds an MBA from Harvard and a BA from Dartmouth College. What an amazing background. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you, Rana. Thank you for going through all this. Thank you for all that you do and for having me on here.
And today we'll be talking about her journey to PMF, which is, to me, like it's one of the hardest things an entrepreneur has to do. So, with that in mind, Jessica, tell us a little bit about Uprise and a little bit of about the mission and the stage you're at right now.
Yeah. So again, thank you. Brief background about Uprise. We are, as mentioned, AI powered financial advisory as a service. So you could imagine that if tomorrow Robinhood were to launch Robinhood Advisory as a product or feature, that is something that we could power for them and many other companies out there. And so um, I use Robinhood as an example because my background was working at Robinhood. Know very intricately well how all the challenges that the customers on their platform face, and it was really very much the inspiration for why I started Uprise in the beginning, which is while building product at Robinhood, we were on the receiving end of so many questions from customers in terms of what stock should I buy, or should I buy options, or many other complicated features that Robinhood has managed to democratize, but hasn't fully educated people in terms of, well, how do I use these things? And so I was like, wait a second, we can build product to support this, right? We can, for your specific situation, what stock should I buy? Instead of generic blog posts, it should be, well, based on where you've come from, where you're trying to get to, this stock, and this is what your portfolio should look like, and many other questions that you might have about your finances. And so in terms of where we are, we got started in 2021, right when the peak of everything finance and fintech was happening, and set out to build this. So fast forward a couple years now, we are a seed stage company partnering with incredible financial companies, from Rippling to Carry, which is a solo 401k provider for solopreneurs, to AngelList and their cap table software. So many incredible companies, and through them, end users that we're able to work with.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So really the question that tripped you up or made you go on this in this direction is like people asking questions about, well, I have Robinhood, but I don't know what to do with it. Is that fair?
Very fair, and maybe taking that a little bit further, me having questions about my own finances and not knowing where to turn to get those. Like as context, at the time that I was thinking about the idea for Uprise, my daughter is now 4 years old, and I was trying to think through, okay, in the beginning of, like, first you have a kid, then what do you do about your finances? How do I clean up my finances? And struggling to understand, where do I roll my 401k over into? How do I allocate my portfolio? Looking into these things, having difficulty figuring out, like, from all the content out there, what is the right thing specifically for me? And I was like, this doesn't make any sense. I was like reading books and like studying for CFP in order to get the answers to these questions, which makes no sense for other
And then
people.
so and you're a Harvard MBA, and yet you're having to do all this.
That's right. And so, like, all of this, the thing that I struggled with the most is the fact that all of this is, there are learnings and multiple sophisticated, academic papers and all this kind of stuff that say, well, like, if you want to optimize your returns, this is how you do it. If you want to rebalance your portfolio, this is how you do it. And how do we just cut through all of that noise and just get to the right answer for people? This is what you should do. And by the way, let me do it for you.
And I'll give you one tidbit from my own experience. I remember joining my first job, and it was a large company, and they had this thing called the 401k, which I didn't understand at all. Folks who are born here at least can talk to their parents and find out what it is. I wasn't born here. My parents were in India. I was in my early 20s, and I had no idea what this was. And my first instinct was they'll take this money and they'll keep it to themselves. I'm not going to give 401k. I mean, this is just like knowledge, right? Didn't know anything about 401k and how employment contracts work and laws of this country work. And so, yeah, I kind of like look back and say, oh my God, I was so naive.
I mean, I I knew I was born in this country and I knew a lot about how it worked, and still many, many things that, one of the things I have said to people is, like, if I had done all these things maybe like 15 years ago, I'd be significantly wealthier than I am today. And I think this is true for probably the vast majority of people. And so this is, this is a lot of what we're trying to help.
I'd love to talk to you about my experience in investing as well, but let's talk about your product journey. Honestly, tell us, like, so the idea came to you while you were sort of working in fintech products, which is great, like earn insight as they call it, right? What did you do first? Like, what was the first thing you decided to like de-risk?
Yeah. So yeah, that's a really good way to frame it. Like, how to de-risk. When starting out on something completely new, everything is a hypothesis and nothing is proved, right? And so, for me, the number one thing in my mind is, like, is there demand?
Mm-hmm.
You cannot boil the ocean and test demand with everybody. So I started off by picking an audience. And that was new college grads at the time. When we initially got started, it said new college graduates. The hypothesis there was twofold. One, new college graduates are underserved. So the vision of what we're trying to build is always, can we bring technology to financial advisory? New college graduates have never been served by traditional wealth advisors because they have no minimal assets, right? Just as a rule, they haven't had as much time working to earn those assets. And traditional advisors are motivated by assets under management. And so therefore, it just doesn't make them the most money. They're not serving that audience. B, was their situations are simpler. And so here's an underserved audience where actually we can apply more technology, even in the initial phases, to test to see if this is repeatable. Okay, great. Hypothesis, thesis, right? But then from there, it's like, do they want this? Do they need this? And so the very first thing I did was I reached out to like my college undergrad sorority. I had somehow found the vice president of the sorority and like sent her a cold email and then asked if she would pass this around to her, the sisters in the sorority. And I managed to get one person to sign up. I said, I'm a college grad, I'm a college alum of the school. You don't know me, and I know this is really creepy, but anybody want me to take a look at your finances for free? And so I got one person to sign up, but it was great because that one person then knew like many people who she referred me to, who then referred me to other people. It started to expand outside of Dartmouth and all this kind of stuff. And so those were the initial, that was the initial MVP that I did, which is I'm just going to meet with people. I have nothing built. Going to meet with people, hear about what questions they have about their finances, see if I can answer those questions well, and then see if they will refer me. And so now, now the product is a lot more built out, but in the beginning it was just me.
That's great, Jessica. And I think one of the things that I'm hearing from you is that you didn't just jump in and start building the product or the technology. You coming from the tech background, having had that strength of building products, you basically said, I'm going to actually do something very non-scalable, which is sort of like building a service before you build a product kind of thing, with a high touch, so that you're talking to your customers, you're finding out the nuances of their problems, and then trying to serve them without writing a piece of code is what I'm hearing from you.
Absolutely, absolutely. I have strongly believed this throughout my product career. Um, but I think the interesting thing is when you're starting something from scratch, there's a point at which you should start building product. And so like then maybe this leads to the next phase of it, which is like you do totally unscalable things entirely manually, don't build a single thing, you don't lock in anything, you learn and then you iterate. But maybe one learning I have is like, at what point do you say how much data is enough for you to say, okay, this one I feel good about, or let's lock that in and maybe start building product. And then, but let's move on to the next hypothesis. And so that I feel like has been, and no right answers to this, has been a really, really interesting learning journey for me as well.
And talk about how you picked that segment of users, right? Because when I think about picking a segment of users, I'm especially for consumer products.
Yeah.
I know you've pivoted from consumer to
Yeah.
B2B as well. I always think of, is this segment going to be viral? Like, will it help me go viral, right? That's one of the biggest, um, I feel like, issues with consumer products. Talk to me about that. Did you give any consideration to that at all?
Like the can it go viral?
Yeah.
Um, maybe a few maybe a few thoughts. So the first thought is, as a product builder, one of the things that you always think about is like this product has product market fit if it has natural word of mouth.
Mm.
Right? Like if somebody this is why we measure NPS, Net Promoter Score, which is like how likely are you to refer this product to a friend or colleague.
I have a strong feeling about NPS, but that's fine.
Okay. But many people utilize this as
Sure,
a
sure,
tool, and
sure.
it is predicated on the fact that people will talk about your product, which is natural product-led growth and virality. I have a much more nuanced view on that now. So initially, that's how I started. We'd measure NPS every time. We would measure like for every one customer who comes in, how many people did they refer, or how many people did they bring in. And the thought is, hey, if you have an incredible product, it will naturally happen. And now my more nuanced view is like, I don't think that's right. Meaning, yes,
Mm.
you do have to have an incredible product that lends itself to word of mouth. Some products are more have like internal mechanisms that lend itself more to naturally growing, right? Like Slack grew via product-led growth, word of
It
mouth,
has network effects built
has
into
network
it.
effects.
Yeah.
Um, and so other things that don't have network effects still can have this virality going. However, it's slower. And that's where marketing becomes really, really important. And I think I have a significant appreciation now for being thoughtful about how you talk about the product, about how you like what channels you use to get that product, and finding the right fit. It needs to match, right? The product, the team, and the channel, they all need to sort of match. And this is a lot of our journey. You talked about our pivot to B2B. It clicks a lot better now than it used to, but it's a journey of discovery to find that.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So you're talking about, as Reforge says, product channel fit.
Yeah. Found
You're
fit.
testing the
There's a
channels,
founder
basically.
fit, the channel fit, the product fit. Yeah. The market fit, all of these things. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. So talk to me a little bit about sort of and in building product is definitely one of the biggest challenges in building, figuring out your target customers and how to serve them and how to make that product so useful that they're willing to talk about it is like a very high bar in itself, right? But talk to me about like team building. Like, how did you think of your team? Did you go at it alone?
No, so I have two co-founders. We have an incredible working relationship, a couple years in now. So Chris Goodmacher and Nantha Mutusami these are my two co-founders. Chris is, so today I focus on sales. Chris works on product and operations, and Nantha works on engineering. And between the three of us, and the other incredible members of our team, have really, I feel like, punched above our weight, and that has always been a point of pride for us. There, it allowed us, by keeping the team small, it allowed us to weather all of the ups and downs of the market. We are still here. That is step one. We live to fight another day, right? We live to be able to, one more shot at achieving the vision, making this happen. So I think that's our team. We were four throughout most of the journey. So in addition to three co-founders, Caroline Petty, who is a CFP and our head of financial planning, and it's the four of us going after it. And now we have a slightly broader team. We brought on a few more folks, but yeah, there's been a lot of ups and downs with a core team of people who I always know have my back.
That's awesome. So when you got started, was the team there, or did you kind of have to like build the team while you were also like hypothesis testing?
Um, I think it was both. Like, had an idea. So basically, how our team evolved. Chris and I joined together first, before the other folks came on, and we were independently working on the same idea, basically. So I had come at it from the Robinhood angle, right? Like the financial services angle, where people are asking their financial products questions. Chris was coming from the payroll and benefits angle. So he was employee number 2 at JustWorks, which is the payroll and benefits unicorn in New York. And he was there for 7 years, responsible for the benefits platform. And he was on the receiving end of questions around, how do I set up my 401k? What should I contribute to it? Am I eligible for an HSA? Blah, blah, blah. And so he had started exploring how to resolve those questions and help people get, more money in their pockets. And so a big component when we joined together to found this was, a big component of your finances is also your benefits. All the stuff that your income and your benefits, the stuff that comes from your employer. And it continues to be a really critical component that we can help people with, not just your investments, which is, I think, where a lot of the industry is focused.
No, I completely agree. And I still remember like that whole conversation that happens with HR when you join a company is like, oh, here's your 401k, and here are all the funds that are available. And, this is the maximum you can give per year, all of that fun stuff. And then the real meat of the question is like, how do I actually
Oh,
figure out my portfolio? N- Everyone looks at you like, that's not, I can't cover that. That is not what I'm here for. And I go like, that is the most important thing, don't you think?
yeah, yeah,
And funny thing is, if you don't make elections, they just put your money in some kind of fund. It's like the strangest thing I've seen amongst large companies.
yeah. Um, Luckily, I think like the regulations around 401ks are changing to help provide more support for people. But I have totally heard of stories of people contributing money to their IRA, their retirement account, and then realizing years later that it's been sitting as cash. They never invested it. And so it's been sitting as cash there and could have been earning significant returns and not. Yeah. In fact,
Yeah.
value.
Honestly, like when it comes to retirement money, like in a good year, when market comes back, you could easily have 30 to 40% returns. Obviously, on bad years,
Sure.
you won't, but I've seen those kind of returns in a few good years
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that I've invested my money. And I'm pretty bad at also like managing and balancing my portfolio. But yeah, having had a finance background, I force myself to do it.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah,
Um,
and so yeah, how can we again, getting back to the product, which is like, how can we bring that kind of best practices to honestly to close to autopilot? And that's kind of what we're getting to.
and I'll tell you like my own experience, and I know this is kind of taking off topic, but I remember, I had at one point I had 401k, and then I went to Wharton, and I actually focused on finance. I mean, my MBA was all finance classes, like I've taken derivatives classes and hedge fund classes. And coming out of it, I went into banking. And so, as a banker, you're not allowed to do certain types of trades, like you can't
Yeah.
do IPOs and things like that. So, once my Series 7 expired, I was like, now I can do whatever I want, right? And I started investing like 2007 or sometime, 2008 or sometime.
Yeah.
And it was like a few $1,000s that I got started with. And thank God I did that. Like, I want to say I like 20 or 30x that money now, just taking that one
That's
investment. Like,
incredible. Yeah.
I've been
Over a
investing,
period of time. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, but that first investment probably like 30x now. So,
Well,
yeah,
and
I'm glad
obviously,
it
like
started.
obviously, like returns aren't guaranteed, right? However, it is helping people understand that the risk associated with it is still worthwhile to do in a way that is appropriate for you, and like finding that right answer, that risk reward ratio for each person, whatever it is for you versus somebody else, etc., and just helping them get their get their get their feet wet, and then they can build from there.
True. I agree that 30x returns are not something that anyone should vie for. I must have gotten lucky, and I also have been like, selling and buying based upon my knowledge of the industry.
Yeah.
But even with all of that, I needed the nudge of an MBA to actually go out and invest. So I
Which is
can't
very
imagine.
expensive. That is a very expensive way to get the knowledge. Yeah,
But I think it paid for itself. At this point, I feel like it paid for itself.
that's good.
Just because I, paid attention to investments. Um, so let's talk about sort of like, what is your process like? So you're in early stages, you're still sort of the seed stage, you're building products now, you have a decent hypothesis of who your customers are, you're testing your channels out. What's your product management or product development process like right now?
Yeah, still pretty, so like I mentioned, we're seed stage, still very, tight in terms of like time frame. I remember when I was working at big companies, so before I used to be at eBay, Amazon, like we would plan for the year. No, we plan for the month. And
Okay.
so every month we're looking at things, and then every week we have weekly planning. So that's a cadence at which we look at things. These are the things that we want to accomplish this month. Like there's always, I would say, in terms of the decision making process, because there are always going to be disagreements, right? If you have more than one person working on something, there are going to be disagreements. Even one person, I have disagreements with myself. So like one of the things that I think about is there needs to be space for feedback and for people to opine, but there needs to be a decision maker. And then once a decision is made, then it's about execution. And you have like defined times and spaces for these both of these types of activities. And so that's a little bit of how we think about like shipping fast is the most important thing. And for us, we found that monthly cadence, um, defined time for planning, defined time for like brainstorming, this kind of stuff, and then execution has worked best for us, and always room for improvement, of course.
Let's talk about that a little bit deeper. And I want to make sure like we talk about this because a lot of times people don't pay attention to these things um, when working. Because most of us have experience working at companies that are post product market fit, have a lot more like that bullwhip is kind of like going like this as opposed to in the early stages where the bullwhip is more like this, right? Um, oh, like, do you guys like ever talk about scale? Because especially when you have an engineering leader, they worry about scale a lot more than we product people do. How do you guys like manage that?
That's a great question. I think in the beginning, scale is not important. It's
I
absolutely
agree.
not important. Meaning, like I used to, because I've worked at now companies of all stages, Series B, Series C, Series D plus, right? Like, and at that time, I remember one of the biggest challenges is always tech debt and tech debt builds. But one of the things that I've come to realize is that actually probably should be proud of tech debt at the earliest stages. That means
Yes.
that you have tried this thing and then this thing and then all of these things. So like comfort with mess is one of the things that I've realized at some of the earliest stages. Comfort that things are not going to be buttoned up and beautiful, because you need to learn and there's nothing, and being very, very brutal with your to-do list on this is what I need to learn. This is how I need to prioritize.
Okay, and then when you pick the engineering leader, what's your suggestion? Because it's not easy sometimes for engineering leaders to be comfortable with mess. They want everything to be buttoned up. Most of the times, I'm not saying everyone's like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think, we are very lucky in the sense that Nanta pushes us to experiment even more. Um, However, this maybe is just even a more broad question of like, how do you hire for the early stages? Or
Yes.
how do you find your partners to work with for the early stages, not even hiring? And is to be very open and honest with those things, very transparent. I remember this is maybe kind of a separate topic, but there was one person, we had already given an offer, I think, to this person. And I sat down with her and I said, hey, you know that if you take this offer, there will be a chance that I come to you and ask you to lower your salary. I ask you that, if we're still struggling to find product market fit, we might need to go really lean, we may need to eat ramen or whatever it is, right? And before you sign this offer, I want you to go in with eyes wide open that that is what is involved. Um, there'll be good times, there'll be bad times. We want somebody who's in it with us for both. And so that's the kind of directness I think is necessary. It's not all, like straight to like, no, every founder story, every startup story has ups and downs. And I think everybody needs to be aware of that. And in the same way of like the mess, the trade-offs that you make, and making sure that before joining an early stage startup, you go in with eyes wide open of the pros, but also the cons.
Awesome. No, this is great. Like honestly, like I worry when I see like team structures at startups that have raised a significant amount of money but don't really have an clear understanding of their target users, or just learning as Refort says, learning velocity
Yeah.
is not there. It really scares me, and it's good that you're like answering those questions, because I feel like having those ingredients can de-risk you a lot in terms of your process that you follow to get to product market fit.
And will not claim to know that I have all, or to I will not claim that I have all the answers, but if there's one thing that is for sure is like every whatever month of startup life is like a year of experiencing somewhere else, and we have a lot of learnings already, which I'm always happy to share for other folks who are looking to make an impact.
And when you finish your monthly cycle, when you have your learnings, and there are times sometimes your hypothesis is right on the money, and sometimes, and a lot of times it is not, right? Like I'm guessing 70% of the time your
Or
hypotheses are
more, yeah.
disproven.
Correct.
What do you guys do to make sure to like learn from that? And do you guys do have like some kind of writing schedule that you do, or is it more sort of like a retro that you do?
We don't have, I would say we don't have a lot of process around that. And I think this is related to what we were just talking about, mess, which is like we don't have rigorous processes or documentations. I think as a team, we generally defer to writing a lot of stuff down in docs, which has I think been very, very helpful. But
Okay.
there have been times where A lot of it is, a new idea comes up or a new team member has joined. Hey, read all of this stuff that we've previously written, but there's a lot of retros that we haven't written down. And so I would say that probably the best transmission of knowledge has been our monthly plannings, but then also our quarterly in-person offsites, during which there is space to say, let's put all the ideas out on the table again. Okay, these are some of the things that we've historically done. In fact, Chris, because we have a couple new joiners, I come around Chris at our last offsite actually took the new team members through the history of the company and the things that we've tried, the things that work, things that didn't work. Would not be the most scalable way to approach this. It is what we have done so far. So no learnings that I would say, or like best practices to take this forward. And to your question, however, I would say that's one of the trade-offs that we are making in terms of, can we ship fast? Do we document? Do we add process? When we add process, we need to be very, very strict about, hey, is this going to have long-term? That's a process is for scalability. And are we at that stage yet?
Good. No, this is really helpful. And then the thing that I wanted to talk to you about is, as a startup, you try different ideas, right? And some things work, some things don't work. But the market is also shifting as you're going through this process, right? Like there are new regulations coming up, just like you mentioned, that could help you like actually boost your growth, in my opinion, right? Um, do you think it's worth going back and testing some ideas that you feel like might come back because of the new like circumstances or environment?
100%. Yeah. Many things change, right? So like our target audience is no longer new college graduates. What
Tell
didn't work with new college
me
graduates?
about that pivot.
So that was customer led. We got feedback, right? The MVP 2 in the beginning, it was like a series of MVPs, and I remember folders: MVP 1, 2, 3, 4, and then like MVP 2 was I tested charging money. So previously it was like referral based and free, right? Me doing things manually. And then MVP 2 was, okay, now put a $60 charge in front of that. And I think I got 6 people to sign up out of maybe 100 people that we reached out to. Was not a fit. And so like that is, and then we evolve from there. One of the things, we have now moved upwards, and we have now narrowed our focus in on small business owners as one key target that we work with. That was primarily led by us having a wait list on our website. We started testing with new college graduates, and in the meantime, we had this wait list going. We were picked up. We were the #1 personal finance product on Product Hunt for 2022. So we got a meaningful amount of exposure from a consumer perspective. And we started noticing that the people on our wait list were all in their 30s, and a lot of them, a big subset of them, had side income and were setting up, these small businesses. And so we were led by where the market took us.
Interesting. But that meant that you had to go a little bit wider with your audience, and then the funnel just kind of like people started gravitating more towards your product. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, there's still so many challenges in this space, right? Like for instance, if your company doesn't offer 401k, there's a lot of limitations on how much money you can put away,
That's right.
um, and like tax limitations and things like that too. That's interesting. And then in terms of just like data, when we talk about data, and this is a data-driven podcast, so I
Yeah.
wasn't going to leave you without asking that question. Um, and a lot of times, when I've been approached by companies that said we need data, we need data, we need data, early stages, I go like, well, actually, qualitative data is more important than quantitative data initially because you don't have as many users. Talk to me about your thought process on that. Now that you've kind of gone through many stages.
Yeah. Um, I bucket data in 2. The first realization that I've had, or just learning that I've had throughout my career, is that actually data is really important. meaning like you are measured on the data. Whether you did a good job or a bad job is entirely in the numbers and not in how you did it. Okay, so you shouldn't break laws and this kind of stuff, but like, uh, I
You should
use
break laws. Okay, I like that.
no, you should always qualify that. Um, so I used to be and still am a recovering perfectionist. Meaning like I cared very much. This is what we're talking about, tech debt and comfort with mess, and it's still a journey for me, right? You could
Good to know.
and so like I used to, when I was earlier in my career, just be like, hey boss, here's my, very well perfected product. Here you go. And I could deliver these products without any idea of like, well, did this have an impact? Did this generate revenue? Did this increase conversion? Did this whatever? And now I realize that it doesn't need to be perfect. I mean, sure, that is an input, but it's not the only input to getting to results, revenue, conversion, retention, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Profitability. So that I believe is key, even at the earliest stages. Are you getting numbers? What I think is less important is in terms of data driving product decisions. And now I'm much more around directional and correct because we need to ship fast. And if we wait until we get, like the full amount of data, we would be there forever. We would never learn anything. And so this is how my thinking around data has evolved as I've gone earlier and, having worked in many, many stages of companies now.
No, that's honestly that's wonderfully put. And honestly, like there's still like there are times when direction, even when you make decisions on directionally correct data, it's is it perfect? No, but a lot of times even static A/B tests change over time, right? You do too much of anything, it may not hold forever, and your customer mix is changing all the time. Um, so talk to me a little bit about just sort of like your philosophy when you were like building the product, right? When you got to the point where you had a few hundred customers or what have you, and you started to build the product. Did you guys like prioritize making sure you had analytics in place and things like that? Or did you say, let's wait for a bit?
Yeah. Um, we the short answer to your question is we made sure we're tracking everything. So
Okay.
from a code perspective, every single thing has an event associated with it. Now, whether or not we have done the analysis and like put it into, and we also actually like prioritize, this is probably our biggest, like most expensive software item is we use Looker.
Okay. Oh, you
Because
guys use Looker.
we use Looker because we
Okay.
think it's important. So the answer is yes, we think it's important. Yes, we have implemented event tracking for everything. I think we could get better at actually processing the data when time permits in between, shipping.
No, that's fair. And I think that's sort of where my head was at also, because if you don't track the data, then you lose history.
That's right.
Whether or not you use it to make decisions early on when you have very little data is up to you. But I've often come into products that were, um, quite mature in their stage and had no tracking,
Mm,
and that actually hurt because you had no history
exactly.
of the data. So I'm glad you prioritized that.
Yes.
um, and in terms of the qualitative learnings, right? So there's a lot of conversations you're having with users.
Yeah.
How do you guys sort of track those learnings?
I think we're pretty actually like diligent about this. So we do regular user interviews. And in fact, every single time a customer cancels, we will send them a request for a user interview. So we're pretty much doing this on a consistent basis. Call it a few user interviews a week. And through that, getting a lot of the qualitative insights into, hey, this is what's missing in the product, or this is why I love the product, all these kinds of things that we take into, this is now a regular cadence in terms of taking learnings into weekly plannings, into roadmap planning, etc. And so it's a mix, right? As you're probably hearing, we have both quantitative data as well as qualitative data, and this pretty consistent cycle of like planning roadmaps and revisiting every week. Hey, Rana, still there? Oh.
Hi, Jessica. I'm
Hey.
so sorry my laptop crashed
Oh, good.
before.
I was a bit confused if it was on my side, so I
Oh, no. You were saying something. I apologize.
I think I was mainly saying that, you know, it's a mix of qualitative and quantitative data, and then making sure that you have a regular cadence for revisiting throughout and planning frequently, right? Like changing what you knew based on the data that you're receiving. They're changing your plans and what you thought you knew based on the data you're receiving.
And let's talk about pivots, right? So you've kind of pivoted multiple times. I know just from target user segment as well as your channels. How do you like when do you feel like I remember like a year and a half ago talking to you and you were still testing that $60 thing. I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
How do you how do you guys like decide, okay, this is not working now. We need to pivot.
That's a very good question. And I don't know that I have anything specific to find. Like, oh, this thing happened, therefore I knew. Certainly the lack of uptake on the $60, that was okay, what do we do next? I believe that it mainly comes up in the month to month planning where we're saying like, hey, where do we focus our attention now? Maybe it's time to focus on engagement. Maybe it's time to focus on growth, whatever it is. The biggest pivot that we made, not really changing the audience, was going from B2C to B2B2C. So we still work with consumers, but now we partner with financial companies to do that. And I think the biggest thing was we were we had our antennas up for what makes us unique as a product, as a team, um, that is stand out, right? We tried many different growth channels. We tried Product Hunt as one that worked really well. We also tried paid ads. We tried socials. We tried many different things. And I think for each of these things, we were looking for outsized results. If we
Mm,
just get like generic results, like in our industry, if you pay $200 to acquire a customer via paid ads, and we got about $200. Okay, well, that is not unique in any way in terms of what would make us special. And so this is kind of what we're thinking, was like, it's not that there was anything particularly like, oh my God, this is crazy, but rather, where can we be meaningfully different? This is how you make impact, right? And for us, the pivot to B2B came because we started getting inbound. And because
mm.
I think my network in fintech, because of Chris's network in payroll and benefits, we started getting inbound from companies in the industry who saw what we were up to and they were very interested in partnering to deliver this. And I think on top of that, we had the aha that through partnering, we could make the product experience meaningfully better. And so therefore, when I say it all clicks, it's like, why us? Well, we come from the industry. We know it really well. We have the trust built up. We know how the processes work in terms of building product, and this kind of stuff. And simultaneously, we can build a meaningfully better product, which is not necessarily the right answer for everybody, but it was the right answer for us. And so it's kind of like when you say pivot, it's like not being entirely wed to those initial hypotheses and get
Hmm.
your antennas up for like, where are you able to deliver outsized returns?
But I think in hindsight, as I'm listening to you, it was a good thing you started as a B2C first because you probably pushed yourself. I mean, it's hard to build a B2C product than a B2B product
Sure.
because there's more things you can do with B2B in terms of your lifetime value might be higher and whatnot. But B2C, it's like, you're literally picking up coins on the street, right? Like you need to have millions and millions and millions of customers for you to say that you're successful. But I think starting there may have given you more a leg up in terms of your learnings. Because
This
if you had started as B2B, I'm not sure if you had had that direct connection with your customers, right? What do you think of that?
These are the things that are like these earned insights that you talk about,
Hmm.
that right, that you are able to get by going through it firsthand versus not. Maybe it's possible to get those learnings in some other way.
Hmm.
This is how we got those learnings. And so I certainly have no regrets about our journey. Um, but I think this entire journey, product building journey, is about getting those really unique insights. And how do you get those as quickly as possible?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's one of the hardest things to do is to sort of like start that process of like, how do I get started? And there's a lot of chicken and egg issues as well, right? You have multiple ideas that come to your mind, but sitting down and saying, this is what I'm going to do and de-risk it is incredibly hard.
Yeah. But also incredibly rewarding and uncomfortable, and all those like things that help you know that you're making progress.
So tell me, I mean, I know we're almost at time, so I want to hear just you give some feedback to like, wannabe entrepreneurs thinking about jumping into the startup world. I think that, when I hear you talk about your process and how you picked your co-founders and the journey and the learnings and the focus on customer obsession all sound like the right ingredients to have in terms of moving to the next step. Um, give a little bit of a advice to startup entrepreneurs who may not have had the experience you did in like the startup ecosystem.
All of these things, yeah. So in terms of focusing on customers, iterating fast, all of these things can be learned. Um, Probably the biggest thing, in addition to everything that we've talked about, which is like methodology, being an entrepreneur, and whether that's an entrepreneur on your own or an entrepreneur within a company, or a product owner within a company, right? It's it should be deeply uncomfortable, where your products and your ideas are failing, and you're getting that feedback, you're getting that kind of feedback, but coming to realize that that is gold, that every single bit of feedback that you're getting is incredible because it helps you learn, it helps you make the product better. But that if you are not suffering, if you are not on the receiving end of uncomfortable feedback, then probably not pushing yourself enough. And if
Mm.
you're not pushing yourself enough, then you're not making going to make enough impact. And so that's a little bit of, and so like for the ones who really want to do that, you could go start your own company. But recognition of that, and do you want to do that? And if you are doing that, like, are you feeling deeply uncomfortable? I think those are two of the things I feel like have been a sort of like a guiding, like a compass. Am I headed in the right direction?
Interesting, interesting. And then in terms of building fintech products, they tend to live in a space of high compliance. Anything you want to share, sort of, to entrepreneurs?
Hmm. um yeah, gosh, we go into the regulations around this stuff forever. I think one of my biggest learnings in that is that the founder needs to be in it, needs to have read the regulations themselves. So, in order to really innovate and to bring change, you cannot rely on an external lawyer who's probably very expensive, on what you heard from the industry or whatever it is. I feel like this is something I learned when I was at Wise. So Wise is payments, international payments, which is highly, highly regulated, even more than financial advice. And and the only way we could bring about change and meaningful, like, customer experience improvements was by going back to the source regulations. The industry would say, like, this is how it's done, this is how you can do it, you're not allowed to do this. But then you go to the source material and you're like, wait a second, it doesn't really say that. If you look at this thing, it actually says that probably this thing that we wanted to do, which is better for customers, is actually doable. And so this is one of the things I believe in from a regulatory perspective. If you're in a regulated industry, is like you can really change the experience for customers by knowing what you're talking about.
No, that's wonderful. Actually, that's it. Kind of applies to both healthcare and fintech, because I mean, I remember working in payments at one point and having to have my legal team as sort of my close partners because everything we needed to do had to be reviewed by them. And while I, familiarized myself with international laws, money, laws, when it comes to cash, things change significantly. Like it gets exponentially harder to take cash from someone and create funds. So I had to learn through that as well. So I'm glad you're mentioning that, learning the ropes, understanding the compliance space is important for folks as well.
Yes, it's important to keep it really top of mind. It's important to go really deep in it. It's important to have good advisors, good legal advisors, right? But you also have to go toe to toe with them and push them.
Yep, absolutely. Have I've done that multiple times. Um, Last thing, so what's coming up for Uprise in the next this year? We just started the new year. Love to hear.
Yeah, we tons to do. We just came out of planning for this month, and so like there's a lot to get done. We are focusing, as I mentioned, on really helping small business owners, and there's a unique situation with small business owners where there's just so much complexity. It's like exponentially more complexity when you have a side business. Um, and a lot more tax optimizations you could have, but then small business owners are so busy with their businesses they don't have time to do that. And so we're building out a lot more there for small business owners. Also, just building out more our capabilities to partner to make it really easy for companies to launch. Partnerships with us, and yeah, there's a lot to go. We have ambitious goals, and plugging away at it.
Well, thank you, Jessica, for your time. I really appreciate your candid answers. I know we went off record a couple of times, and sadly enough, I had a malfunction of technology as well. But hopefully, your conversation helps people. And honestly, like I think you're amazing, and what you're doing is incredible. And I really, really wish you all of the success in the world. Um, the humility you bring to the table with all the knowledge is incredible. So I really, really wish Uprise all the success.
I really appreciate that. And thank you so much for having me on this podcast. And also, as mentioned, everything that you do for the product community. I always enjoy our conversations. I feel like you really push me and ask the hard questions. So always enjoy these conversations. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Jessica. Have a wonderful weekend, and hopefully catch up with you soon.
Likewise. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.